Hey, let's talk about the battle subway in black and white. And before I get this started, I want to address the lack of a Heart Gold and Soul Silver video. See, the thing about Heart Gold and Soul Silver is they had the exact same endgame as Platinum. Like, copy pasta, 1 for 1, Sinnoh Battle Frontier just plopped in the middle of Johto. And yeah, I could absolutely talk about the Pokeathlon, but I didn't talk about the contests in Generation 3 or 4 because they weren't really endgame. They were side content, and the Pokeathlon falls into the same category. So my apologies if you were expecting an expose on Johto, but that's just not happening. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. In March of 2010, Generation 5 kicked off in North America with the release of Pokemon Black and Pokemon White. These games, while being on the same system as the previous generation, offered some pretty impressive improvements for the time. There were better 3D elements. Seasons were introduced for the first and only time. TMs became permanent and had infinite uses, something that was carried forward until Generation 8. The music is slightly dynamic now and can change during the battle based on the situation. And the sprites actually move now. There are, of course, even more things that changed or improved, but I just wanted to highlight the important ones. Or at least the ones that I thought were cool. They also added triple battles, but there are only 6 triple battles in the entirety of Pokemon White, and only a single triple battle in the entirety of Pokemon Black. So I'm not going to talk about them just yet, as they clearly aren't important to the game. So the endgame. Normally to access endgame content, you have to become champion. Afterwards, you're invited to the endgame, or the endgame location is unlocked. Black and White decided that that's just too tedious, and you're allowed to participate in the endgame as soon as you hit Nimbasa City, the town that contains the 4th gem. All you need to do is get there, and you can start doing endgame stuff. Well, partially anyway. When you first arrive at Gear Station, an elite trainer will stumble out of the station and give you your versus recorder. Afterwards, she'll say she's headed to the Battle Institute and take off, and then you're free to enter the station proper. Once inside, the first thing you should notice is that the entire place is a giant ring, and you can freely run this ring without stopping because of the new 3D effects. This has nothing to do with the endgame, but it's a really neat improvement that I wanted to highlight. Anyway, as you run around the ring, you may notice that there are different trains on display. Instead of walking up to a counter and choosing your battle format, each of these trains is a different battle format. You have the single train, the super single train, the double train, the super double train, the Wi-Fi train, the multi-train, the super multi-train, and the Anvil train. If you decide to try this facility out as soon as you hit Nimbasa City, you'll only be able to access the normal trains, and none of the super nor the Wi-Fi trains. This is also the first time in the games that any Pokemon under level 50 will be scaled up to level 50, which is what allows you to partake in these battles so soon. However, while the Pokemon that the trainers here use will be unevolved, they'll still be fully IV bred, EV trained, and will take full advantage of held items and abilities. The single train, double train, and multi-train all function very similarly. You take a ride, battle 7 trainers in a row, and receive BP at the end of the ride based off of your win streak. This is neat though. When you complete a set, you arrive at a rest station that's full of other passengers who you can interact with. Occasionally, these passengers will even give you items. Once you're finished exploring the station, you talk to the conductor and he'll ask if you want to go back to Nimbasa City, or if you want to continue riding the train to do your next set. On your 20th consecutive win, you are challenged by Subway Boss Ingo on the single train, Subway Boss Emmett on the double train, and the 2 of them on the multi-train. Defeating them will award you a chunk of BP, and then you're returned to the station. Now, to access the super trains, you have to have unlocked the national dex. All that means is that you have to beat the game. After the credits roll and you start the game again, you'll have an interesting conversation with Looker, and then you'll head outside, talk to Sharon and Belle, and the senior Professor Juniper will upgrade your Pokedex. With that out of the way, let's head back to the subway and take on these oh. Or not. Yeah, that's right, you have to unlock these trains. First by battling through the normal trains and beating Engo, Emmett, or the both of them on the single, double, and multi-trains respectively. However, 21 consecutive wins in the train of your choice and a victory over the subway boss therein will lead the conductor to finally let you on the super train. Now the super trains function exactly the same as the normal ones, with two exceptions. Firstly, the Pokemon you face are going to be much more challenging. In the normal trains, your opponents will use unevolved Pokemon and only Pokemon found in the Unova Pokedex. In the super trains, any Pokemon in the National Dex is allowed, and they will be fully evolved, with the exception of a Porygon 2 holding an Eviolite. Secondly, there's no end to it. In the normal trains, you battle in 21 battles, and then you go back to the station whether you want to or not. In the super trains, you get to battle in as many battles as you can handle. You also get to battle the subway boss or bosses at the 49th battle of each train. That said, you will still only get rewards for doing a full 7 in a row each time, but your rewards will increase with each set you complete. Now let's talk about those rewards. You get BP for winning a set, which you can spend at the BP shops. Each platform will have a BP shop, and each shop will have the exact same items for sale. The left cashier will sell TMs, with new moves like Smackdown, Round, Sludge Wave, Ally Switch, and Incinerate, and the right cashier will have way more items, including vitamins, the power items, and many, many held items for high-level battling. You also still receive trophies for your victories. In previous games, you could win a bronze, silver, and gold trophy for winning 25, 50, and 100 consecutive battles. In Black and White, you still get trophies, but they aren't based on a win streak. Instead, each super train gets its own trophy that can be obtained by beating the boss, and they're very cleverly named. You get the single trophy from the super single train, the double trophy from the super double train, and the multi trophy from the super multi train. To touch on multi-battles for a moment, you can still do these with a friend, or you could still do these with an AI partner. However, the way the partner is chosen is slightly different. Rather than having different NPCs that all played differently and allowed you to create strategies, you only get to choose the opposing gender to your player character. Meaning that if you play as Hilda, your partner is going to be Herbert, and vice versa. However, you do get to still choose a strategy for them. If you choose offensive strategy, their Pokemon will be pulled from a pool of 37 offensively spec'd Pokemon. And by that, I mean they're all spec'd with offense in mind, like being fully invested in attack and speed, or special attack and speed, being modest, adamant, jolly, or timid, holding things like a Life Orb or a King's Rock or a Focus Sash, just being made to be hyper-offensive. If you choose a defensive strategy, their Pokemon will be pulled from a pool of 33 defensively spec'd Pokemon, and the same thing applies. These will be spec'd with full HP investment, and then either full defense or full special defense. Sometimes they're even spread evenly across the three. They'll be calm, careful, impish, or bold, holding things like leftovers, or chesto berries, citrus berries, just things to make them very bulky and have lots of staying power. There's also a balanced strategy, which lets them pull from both pools equally. Now before I move on to the final bit of the Battle Subway, I quickly want to address one of my favorite things about the subway. When you're battling on the subway, the music is actually kind of dynamic when you're moving through the cars. There are 7 cars, one for each trainer you have to face, and every time you move from one car to another, the music gains a new instrument. When you first start in car 1, there are no instruments, it's just the sound of the train moving down the tracks. When you enter car 2, a hi-hat begins to tap away in the background in time with that sound. Car 3 adds a few congas to the hats, playing in time with them. Car 4 adds an electronic drum kit, beginning to drown out the sound of the train. Car 5 starts this funky bass track with a synth to accompany it. Car 6 throws a piano into the ensemble, jazzing up the track even more. And Car 7 adds an entire brass section, which completes the band. This isn't anything important to the game, I just wanted to call attention to it because I think it's neat. So the last thing in Gear Station is the 8th train. This train is the Anvil train, which takes you to Anvil Town. Anvil Town is a hamlet with scant few things to do. There's a lost and found in the southeastern house that you can get items from after 7 consecutive wins in the subway, and if you don't pick them up immediately after your victory, the man will hold on to a max of 10 of them for you. These items can include vitamins, max revives, full restores, elixirs, and rare candies. There's also a turntable. Since Anvil Town has a deep connection to the railroad, there's a turntable dead center of town. A worker on the bridge will tell you about the specific car that's on the turntable, and that changes every day. You get nothing for this except information, but it's neat, I guess. The other addition to the game beside the Battle Subway is the Battle Institute. That one that the Ace Trainer mentioned when she stumbled out of Gear Station and gave you your versus recorder? That one. It's also located in Nimbasa City, in the southwestern corner, right past Gear Station. In the Battle Institute, you're challenged to take the Battle Test, a series of 5 battles to judge your battle prowess. Battle. These battles will continue even if you lose. So if you're on your 3rd battle and something bad happens, the test doesn't end, you just don't get as many points as you would if you'd won the battle. After 5 battles, the researcher will give you a score and a ranking based on that score. There is literally no reward for doing this. I guess a bonus is that if you reach master rank at least once, the researcher will acknowledge it when you talk to him, but you get nothing for doing this at all. So instead, this mode was actually used to more accurately judge a Pokemon's IVs when they're newly hatched. The judge, who appears in the Gear Station after the credits roll, will give you a general rating of your Pokemon just like in the last 2 generations. He'll tell you his overall rating, then he'll give you the best stat for the Pokemon. And if 2 or more stats are tied, he'll list them in order. And while this is helpful, it's not terribly accurate, especially if you're trying to calculate hidden power. So instead, you can use this mode to judge them for yourself. You'd have to find a calculator online if you don't know the formula, but it is entirely possible to do. And with that, we've covered the in-game facilities of Black and White. The Battle Subway was a nice addition to the battle facilities, if a little basic. Splitting each mode into their own separate train was a really cool addition, and adding a normal and super version of each was a fantastic way of starting people out and then giving them more of a challenge later if they went looking for it. The Battle Institute was an interesting experiment, even if it wasn't actually used for its intended purpose. Oh, and Anvil Town existed. All in all, a really solid entry into the endgame of the Pokemon series. The Battle Subway was a nice addition to the Battle Frontilities. I want a Battle Frontier so bad!